you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they want to do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shit.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Today I want to talk about our mental health, correctional fatigue. First off, I want people to know that we're human. And the things we see every day, the things that we have to face every day, it's not easy. It's not easy for anyone. I think William Young says it best. He's the author of When Home Becomes a Housing Unit and then Nothing That Never Happened. It's okay to not be okay. And sometimes in this profession, we don't think that. We don't think that we can express some level of vulnerability because in the end, our environment doesn't allow that. It doesn't want us to be vulnerable. But think about the stuff that we have to face every day. Stuff we see, what we deal with, the challenges from the population, the challenges from our peers, the challenges from management, the challenges from the agency. There's so much pressure in regards to what we have to do and who we have to be while doing it. And it can take its toll. And some of us, we may look to our family for support because, again, they know who we are, before we put on the uniform, and they know who we are, or they hope they know who we are when we take off the uniform. But the middle is where the transition happens. When you're wearing the uniform, when you're in that location, that's where the changes occur. And that's where, first, we have to recognize that it's happening. But second, so do our peers. Because we don't want that to set in. Not even for an instant. People have asked me, hey, Gans, what's the biggest tip you could give someone working in corrections? Now, of course, we know there's many tips. But the biggest tip I like to give is know who you are before entering this profession, so you know who you have to be when you leave. Because that road is tough. Subtle changes, very small. It's very hard to recognize, so you have to recognize those feelings of conflict in yourself. Because if you don't recognize it, even if your family does, because they know who you are when you're not wearing that uniform, you're going to be resistant because you're not going to believe them. So the people you love right here, they no longer see that person in the picture. You have to recognize that change. Like, is that still me? Is that still how I am when I'm with the people that I love? Am I still smiling? Am I still happy? When it comes to us wearing the uniform, it would be great if we had peers who were very supportive of us, that allowed us to be vulnerable when need to be in order for us to process what we just saw, what we had to deal with. It would be great because there's a big burden that we put on our families when I'm not allowed to express who I need to be to my peers, to the ones who are probably in a very good position to help me. If they're able to help me process something, then maybe that's less that I have to bring home, less that I have to confront my family with. And again, my family may know who I am, before I wear the uniform, after I take it off. They know who I am as a human when it comes to dealing with the situations I have to deal with. But I think what helps us out too is when you have peers or managers even, supervisors even, who know what's expected of you and how to balance, these concerns and conflicts that you have inside when it comes to dealing with the things that we have to deal with. So basically it's how do I maintain the balance of, what I feel with how I got to get this job done, how I got to get the work done. Because the stuff we're going to see, guys, deaths, assaults, just disrespect on a daily basis. It's a lot. It causes stress because in the moment, we're dealing with these moments of high intensity. And you can't turn it off Because as you're dealing with that moment, another moment can occur. So there's the anxiety on top of that because of what's going to happen next, the unknown. So unpredictable. So now you have stress partnered with anxiety. And right from the get-go, when you're in the academy, they teach you got to be hypervigilant. And they connect that to your survival. And then when you're working in those prisons or jails and you're putting in those hours, because we put in hours, you start to connect that hypervigilance to your survival. And now it's hard to turn off, even when you're home. You don't even realize you're doing it. And we always talk about, sitting at a restaurant. I don't even have to consciously look for that seat. My body tells me this is where you need to sit. And if I'm sitting in the wrong seat, I feel uncomfortable. I shift, I move until eventually I'm where I need to be. And again, they don't teach you how to turn that off because you have people that have been retired for 10, 15, 20 years that still have it. Because it's been connected to their survival. Something that you just cannot turn off even when you are long out of this profession. So imagine the stress of that every day. Not allowing yourself to breathe because you're afraid that if you do breathe, you're vulnerable. There's a lot of people in corrections that their mind is so stressed out and it's so overactive that they can't even sleep in the same bed with their loved ones because they have night terrors that may cost them to wake up in a violent act. And that only has to happen once. So what they do, because their mind can't be put at rest, is they make the sacrifice and they sleep on the couch or they sleep on another bed because they're afraid that somewhere during the night they could hurt their loved ones. So now think about that, guys. You can't even turn it off when you're sleeping. How scary is that? So I think the purpose of this video is to also let you know that the environment that we're in, the peers, the managers, we have to go ahead and enforce an environment that allows people to express what their concerns are, because we do want a stable staff. We don't want staff that is not mentally stable. I mean, we have people that they're responsible for. So we need to let them know that if there are any concerns, that you can come to us and we can help. We can get you what you need so you could be effective. And we do have teams that should come and play at this point when the facility goes through something tough to deal with. Death of an officer, riot, even the death of an inmate, guys. The death of an inmate can affect us on so many levels. I mean, yes, it's a human. That's one thing. But second thing is, I had a responsibility to keep that human alive. And I failed. I may take that responsibility to the heart. And also, the consequences behind that. There's the anxiety. Am I going to get in trouble for that? I don't know. And everybody's worried about liability at this point, but nobody's worried about that officer that saw it. Or that officer that responded. Sometimes we get so lost in the moment that we forget that, well, how is that person dealing with it right now? Like, I mean, maybe if there's mistakes, we'll figure it out. But has anybody checked on that individual? See what their concerns are? Or do we just let that person go home? We have to ask ourselves that. And if we are the peers of those individuals, we have to ask ourselves, are we allowing them to express their concerns? Are we allowing them to say, I'm not okay, as William Young would say it? Are we allowing the environment to allow that? Because we can make that happen. A lot of people will say, well, the environment doesn't allow us to be vulnerable. Well, the environment's made of people that don't allow that. So we need to shift that. We need to change that immediately. We need to go ahead and make an environment that reinforces that it's okay to be vulnerable, and we're going to help you through it. We're going to go through the process with you. Because in the end, I am my brother and my sister's keeper. So we have to do what we can to make sure that we have an environment that allows them to express concerns so we can help them through it. The last thing you want is to have an environment that reinforces change that's just not positive or conducive to the well-being of that individual, which ultimately won't be positive or conducive to the well-being of the agency in large. And remember, guys, change is so subtle and so slow-moving that it really is up to you to recognize it. You have to recognize what is happening while you are going through it. I mean, yes, your family knows you when you're not wearing the uniform, but you're going to be resistant to all their efforts if you yourself don't recognize the fact that, man, something's happening to me, something that's breaking me away from who I am in these pictures. And if I really love who I am, and I love the people that I'm around, then I cannot allow this to happen. That's your goal in the time you have in this profession. I come in this way, and I'm going to leave this way. A lot of us focus about the physical, but they don't focus about our mental well-being. Who am I going in is who I'm going to be when I leave. That's the toughest challenge, but we can get it done. It starts with us, and it starts with our support. And guys, if you have teams that come on site after those major incidences, they have to walk around. They can't expect people to come to them. They have to walk around and talk to them and say, it's okay. What's the concern? But they have to be proactive. This is a team that reacts. Yes, a concern happened and we're going to address it, but it's also preventive because we want to make sure it doesn't happen to anybody else. The last thing we want is for someone to know that they're vulnerable, but not be given a chance to express it. And in the end, they feel that there's no way out. And what do? And that's why we do these videos. We do these videos to tell people there is a way out. You can trust us. But first you have to admit you have a problem. And that's where we can help. Because we can give you the environment where you're comfortable enough to admit that you have a concern. As always, guys, the show is Teardrop. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.